So welcome to Sheni V'Chamishi. There's this thing where they had event and it gave women opportunity, right? Opportunity like men have in terms of whatever it was, educational and motivational and also life enhancing, like these groups. It's called Mic Drop. And so a few points about the person who does it. I met Rosh Lowy in the shul in Bal Harbor, a few Lubavitcher boys who brought me out there, young Elite, to do a couple of shiurim on halacha and chassidus and nigla stuff that they wanted to have it in a better, the way I do it. Well, anyone knows my channel knows. So they introduced me to him, and I don't know exactly. I just told him, look, I go by From Reporter on Instagram, and I really feel like him being he's a chassid. He sits, he fabrengs, he go to his office. He's very proud of the Rebbe, and he believes in the Rebbe's brachas. He believes it's part of his life, and so on. Like you have examples like Edgar Elstein in Argentina and things like that, who they believe that the Rebbe has been a guiding, maybe in a mystical way, like the Rebbe said, go to this coffee shop, and it so happened that things worked out. And then they go, okay, so this Rebbe might have had some foreknowledge, right? Which is common among people who like to make these things up or like to believe these things, but that's not the point here. The point here is he's for all intents and purposes, a proper chassid, but he doesn't seem like an indoctrinated person or a person that carries baggage of religious shame and spiritual abuse, which you could research the word spiritual abuse. So there's a woman who did 25 years research on it. So that's Rosh Lowy, and I told him these words. That's me, my you have a elevator pitch, and what do you want to tell somebody that would make sense and would be a good point that could have some good effect on a third person. I think it was John Voight who had said that the Rebbe said that when two people meet, it should be a benefit of a third. Obviously, the Rebbe didn't invent that, but the Rebbe was smart in quoting it, because this way he gets his name on goodness and kindness. But that's what people have been doing for thousands of years. They've been discussing not only how to help themselves selfishly, but they've also been altruistic, and a mix of both, because you can't be either. You can't be completely altruistic or completely selfish. You wouldn't survive either way. And what I told him was that from people, although they seem modern and they look modern in every form of the way, if you pay attention, they have so much that it's not that they're denied. I'm denied a lot of things. I'm denied time and everything, money. I'm denied things that others have, but with time and with patience, you get everything, right? But they're denied it in a way that you'll see no progress in 20 years. So So it got some publicity, and Flatbush Girl came to chime in, but the point is somebody used halacha as a excuse or a tool to ban women from being in a place that is considered men, stuff like that. So you have to, the question goes, who are these people? So I waited a day or two, and I found out that it was someone from a family that they tried to stop the Rebbe from having Machni Yisrael. When the Rebbe would they had to kick the Bachram out from the middle of learning, even though you're not supposed to be Mevatel Talmud Torah, even for building the Beis HaMikdash. And the Rebbe would have all these beautiful, wealthy women from Manhattan schlepping their husbands with the deep pockets, that's the Seder Olam. And they come for the Rebbe's blessing and guidance, which a lot of women don't really know what they want to ask. And they ask for, one lady said, you said about raising your hand to become rich. Could I still raise my hand to become rich? The irony is that this woman was rich in the first place. How'd you get into Machni Yisrael, right? It's for rich people, pretty much, the Gvirim. One Baal Tshuva who happened to be a Gvir told me that when I was in yeshiva, and I looked at him, and I was a child. The first question I was like, you're really rich? Like, could I have some? That's what was on my mind the whole time. But he was telling me, like, all the millionaires come downstairs, and the Rebbe, and he was trying to explain to me what Machni Yisrael is. He looked really handsome and polished, but he was a Lubavitcher chassid for all intents and purposes. That was the life he chose. And these people try to stop the Rebbe from having Machni Yisrael because men and women came together to meet him, and they used bullshit like, Rebbe's never had audiences with women, which is true. They asked me, my cousin asked me that in Yerushalayim, because he was a Yeshalma boy and he grew up in that tradition and he was learning Chabad Chassidus, and he had one question on the Rebbe, which I couldn't answer, but I had a very clever play. I was kind of working for the Rebbe, covering for the Rebbe, which was a mistake at the time. I didn't understand that the Rebbe is not going to cover for me, right? If someone asked a question on what I'm doing, if I'm eating treif, the Rebbe wouldn't cover for me. And the Rebbe did cover for people, but you had to be of use to him. You had to be on the higher echelons, like you had to be a cheski to be covered for. But clearly, the Rebbe hasn't put. He did a lot. He helped a lot. He said that a yid is a yid, and he did a lot of. He said a lot of things, but they were for special people to be protected because he needed them anyway. But I covered for the Rebbe by saying, go ask Fitcha Offen. Fitcha Offen was like this big mashpia and chassidus that my cousin, who was Yishalmi, would trust. But back to the question, someone used halacha, and that same guy from that family tried to stop the Rebbe from having these, and the Rebbe would blush when these beautiful women would talk to him. He'd blush because he really was, he really liked them, and this is his nature. But so they rolled out red carpets in 770, and it was special for them. So the guy tried to stop the Rebbe. So now these lowlifes who they were never successful in stopping the Rebbe, because you had a good guy like Groner and Chanina to take care, and Rabbi Krinsky, all those who were Rabbi Groner, Rabbi Chanina, all those. I'm sorry if I didn't mention them in the same line. So the Rebbe would. The Rebbe did it anyway. So what do? After Gimel Talmud, they're coming and trying to take a hit on women. Now, what do? We defend. We immediately go into defense mode and we say, it's a shtus. No, the best defense is an offense. Find out who these people are, and find out who in their family, their wives or their daughters, are they trying to block from Chinuch Habonos, which is education. Because at the end of the day, it's not about men and women in the same room. It's about they want to deny women education and access. So find out who these people are, and cordially and tell their wives and daughters, you're welcome here. You're welcome anytime. Whenever you have the strength or opportunity strikes, we're here for you, and we'll make you feel comfortable no matter how much spiritual abuse you got at home. And there was a lot of spiritual abuse that was not really the Rebbe's message or Chabad even in my family. For example, my father had a lot of strict things that were not, the Rebbe didn't have those stringencies, so he played it on us. Now here comes the question of halacha. So the boy Nash, I think it's Eli Nash, mentioned I didn't know such a halacha. There are halachas that say that women can't go out of the house without a chaperone, but those were written in times when the goyim behaved that way, and that's why they had so women weren't allowed to walk the streets alone. So if there is a halacha, there's a halacha for everything, but pay attention that a lot of the shilos and shulas were written, and there were censors. And I'll give you the best example. Here in Tokyo, where I am in Japan, you go into a club, everybody behaves so nice, and we're not even talking about the sexes to each other, but even the guys will give you a drink that they paid for. They'll give it to you. And you would think there's nothing that's free, and that's a proper thing to teach your children. Nothing is free, but it's really an interesting exception to the rule, which is the rule. Literally, like 2-3 guys, I was just, because I know the culture, but still it was, interesting. And it's such an environment, and people are so cordial and nice, but the funny thing is that I took a picture of a sign in the bathroom that has a warning: don't grab people, don't force people, don't date rape anyone. What's the sign for? This sign should be hung in New York City and in Los Angeles and in other fakakta places. The sign, it's so inappropriate for the place and time that it's hanging, right? I read the sign and I thought, this is funny, I'll take a picture, and people in the West, in America will appreciate this. Of course, people try to behave as best as they can, but there's a lot of problems out there. And that's the style of Shilas HaTshuvos. A lot of times the Shilas HaTshuvos were written in ways that it did say that you can't have women congregate, you can't have men and women dancing together, which Jews have always been doing it, even from people who were strong believers in Hashem and kept Torah and fasted Monday, Thursday, they danced with women. There was no, because tznius itself is not even a fundamental in Judaism anyway. There's nothing in the Torah or Chazal enacted the laws of tznius, but it had nothing to do. But jealous people get a ride on it. But the funny thing is that when we read the Shilas HaTshuvos to understand the history of halacha and how it worked, we're forgetting that the way it's written, the sign in the bathroom, has nothing to do with the club you're in. It's completely cordial people. People are nice to the guys, are nice to the guys and to the girls. It's completely menschlich. So if you're someone who just dug out some archives and you found like a Cairo Geniza and you found old Shilas Teshuvos, you would think you fully understand what was happening back in that time, and in the end we see that we don't. It's a beautiful example. So the best thing is to trace and find out, and then they say pressure, we got pressure and there's a little to do. Find out who it is and try to help the kids in that particular family, because the pressure is just 2-3 people making noise, tops. Usually it's even one. And we treat it with such respect when it's nebuch. And I'll do another one on why women education is very important.